If there was anything you would change in your journey, not just Indian matchmaking, but throughout your journey, to bring you to where you are today, is there?
People have been asking me recently, would you do it all over again? And actually, they've always asked me that. And I've always been like, yeah, of course. And then, the more distance I get from the show, I'm like, I'm not sure. Actually, I'm not sure I would. If I knew what I knew today, I'm not sure I would have done a season one. I'm not sure I would have partook in this circus. My life was pretty good, and I can't tell you what would have happened in that life, but it was pretty good. It was pretty stable. It was full of love of my friends and my family. I was traveling. I had a great career. Maybe I didn't love it, but I was pivoting. So yeah, I think it's not a regret. But now, as I get further, I want to be very honest with people. They always want me to find the silver lining and be like, "Aren't you glad you did it?" And I wanna normalize that, like, maybe I'm not glad, like, and maybe that's okay, maybe we're not glad about every decision we made, but it became our path, and there's an acceptance to that, and woulda, shoulda, couldas are very, unproductive in many ways, so, um, yeah, I think that's an interesting, thing that I've evolved into very recently, so you guys are one of the first to get the, "I'm not sure I would have done it."
Hi, and welcome to Indian Explorers. In this podcast, we talk about Indian success stories. I am Sabrina, and together with my co host Amit, we will get to understand the journey of our guests and what drives them. The optimism, patience, idealism, and courage are their attributes we want to bring to life in these conversations with them. If you enjoy the show, please hit the subscribe button and share it with others. Hello, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing, Sabrina?
Doing well. You?
Good. My parents are coming down from Spain on Friday, so I'm looking forward for them to arrive, and I'm just going to give them the babies, and I'm going to say I'm on holiday.
Yes. Go play as much football as you want.
That's the dream. Let's see what
Take
actually happens in
advantage.
reality. How, how you doing?
Doing well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Excited for this guest today.
yeah. She should be fun. She should be fun.
Yeah.
Before that, I want something. I want to talk about something. I want to
Okay.
fat shame America.
You and
I think
everyone else in the world.
I think there's about 40% of Americans are obese. That's about
Okay.
100 million people. And it's a serious problem.
It is.
Yeah. But even though it's a problem for America, it's actually been a big win for Denmark.
Okay. Tell me why.
Yeah. So Denmark has this pharma company called, I'm going to mispronounce it, obviously, Novo Nordisk. Novo
Okay.
Nordisk. Yeah.
Okay.
So they have two products, which I'm sure you've heard of, um, Ozempic and Wegovy.
Ozempic and Wegovy. Yes.
Yeah, correct.
Very popular here in the
Yeah,
US.
very popular. So basically, what it is was this Danish company. It's been
Mm-hmm.
around in 1920 or yeah, early 1900, and they developed this drug to try and cure type 2 diabetes.
Correct.
And this drug, it's actually a semaglutide. So
Yep.
semaglutide, what it is, it you inject it, it's self-injected, and it produces insulin, which
Right.
obviously lowers the blood sugar and therefore is a cure for type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
The
And not
problem
a
is,
cure necessarily. It's a to help people with diabetes, right?
yeah, correct.
Yeah.
But people have been taking it for diabetes, but what they found within 3 4 months that animals where they tested them and humans have lost 15% of their weight using this. Am I pronouncing it correctly? Ozempic?
Ozempic.
Ozempic. Great.
Yeah.
So Ozempic is actually FDA approved to cure diabetes. So
Correct.
what this company did was they repackaged it with identical 99.9% formula and they produced Wegovy. Wegovy.
Wegovy.
Wegovy. So, Elon Musk tweeted about it saying, hey, I'm preparing for the fight. I'm fasting. Oh, and I'm injecting myself with Wegovy. So this has been, let's just say, the miracle drug that the Americans were looking for. Do you know what it costs, Sabrina, per month?
Wegovy or
Yeah,
Ozempic?
yeah, Wegovy.
You know, I have several friends here who are taking one or the other.
Okay.
Um, I would assume if your insurance covers it, it's a couple hundred a month, and if
So
not, it's even more. But Wegovy is much more affordable,
yeah, so it is $1,350 per month.
and that's average, right?
Uh, I mean, more or less, it's the same dose. So most people who have Wegovy, they inject it once a week, and the cost is $1,350, which I thought was pretty
Mm,
expensive. But then,
I think it's a lot lower now.
is it? Oh,
I
okay.
think so.
I read this last night. I thought it was a big number. But then again, if you're fat and you live in America, what's $1,350 compared to the amount you spend on gyms and trying to lose weight?
People who are overweight and don't take care of themselves and want the easy fix don't see it that way, right? They're not thinking about the future of their health and what you're going to have to deal with medically.
Yeah,
It's so let me tell you, I have lots of friends, not lots of friends, a handful of friends that I know have taken it, and they've lost a lot of weight, a lot.
yeah,
And I asked them, like, did you pay for it? Did insurance cover it? Well, they all went to their doctor, and their doctors prescribed it.
yeah.
So I went to the doctor, and I was like, everyone's on Ozempic. Can I get on it? And he laughed, and he was like, no. And
No,
luckily, he did not, morally, he did not allow me to get on it. And I was like, why? Everyone's on it. I just want to lose a little bit of weight. And he's like, no. He said, your BMI is not high enough. He goes, and thankfully you're healthy. So no, I am not prescribing it for you, because there's also another ethical component, which is everyone was getting on weight loss for it. And people who struggle with type 2 diabetes weren't able to fill their prescriptions.
correct. Yeah, there is a shortage. Actually, the
Hmm.
the this Wegovy is actually only available in four countries, which are Denmark, Norway, Germany, and America. And just in September, i.e., this month, it started in the UK. And the reason why it's taken so long to get to other countries, obviously, weight loss is not an issue only Americans suffer. There are a billion people around the world who are overweight. But it's just because the demand in America is so prevalent that basically there's not enough supply to cover
Yeah.
it. So it's a
Is
big
this the
problem.
first So we've been talking about Ozempic here, in the media
A lot.
for over a year now.
Yeah.
Is this the first? I'm curious. You're in Chile. First time you're hearing about these drugs,
Um,
and
because I
you
follow
read the
because I
news a
follow
lot.
U.S.
So
news, I know it's been going on for over like 2 years now, and I've also seen the stock price of the Danish company Novo Nordisk. I don't own the stock, but it's been on the news recently because they've just overtaken LVMH. Our friend Bernie, friend of the pod,
oh,
they've just
mhm.
overtaken LVMH as the largest public company in market cap, $420 billion. And this is what really struck me. They
Amazing.
are they are greater market cap than the entire GDP of the country. I repeat that. Their market cap of $420 billion is greater than the GDP of Denmark of $408 billion. Now,
That's
I don't
amazing.
know any other company that's bigger than the market cap of the whole country. It's affected the currency, the interest rates, the growth rates. It's the largest tax contributor in the country. And think about it, Denmark has Carlsberg, Denmark has Pandora, Denmark has Lego,
Yeah.
and Denmark has the largest shipping company in the world. I don't know how to pronounce it. Maersk, Maersk, the shipping logistics company. These are all
Okay.
Dutch companies, and this two drug wonder, miracle drug, is the largest tax contributor to Denmark. And I just think it's phenomenal. Did you know Lego, by the way, is private?
I assumed so.
Oh, you did? Because all the other companies are public listed, in the
Yeah.
they've all gone IPO. And,
Never heard of them going public, so I
and
just
Lego was founded in 1932 in Denmark, when the guys started building things with wooden stuff.
yeah,
And I don't know how many kids they've had, but it's still family, 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 private, private, private.
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I just thought fat Americans are basically helping the Danish economy to such a level. This Danish company doesn't have tax havens like Apple, Amazon have. Everything is in Denmark. So all the money goes back to Danish, what's it, krones? Well, I don't know what the currency is in Denmark, but yeah, everything is going to there. So their revenue for 2022 was $25 billion. And
Amazing. They are so
Lego,
grateful for overweight Americans.
yeah, correct. And I just to get a comparison, Lego is $9 billion. And I just thought the fact that they exceeded and passed
You know,
LVMH.
it tells you the weight loss industry. We've always known what a big industry it is and what a, high revenue producing industry it is, especially here in the US. And this just proves that. My doctor did say, and I've read, lots of articles about it, where is it a quick fix? And quick fixes don't always work.
Yeah,
So
I
I
wonder
can
what
really.
happens when they stop taking them.
And that's what my physician said. He's like, if you take it, you're going to have to keep taking it.
Yeah.
Um,
It's when
and
people
a
dye their
lot of
hair.
physicians
When you
are
dye your
not
hair.
saying,
Yeah,
what's that?
when you dye your hair, people have told me, why don't I dye my hair black? I'm like, who wants to
You
then
can end
dye their
up with
hair?
it.
Yeah, it's painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Interesting
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, I just let's hope it's not another Nokia. You remember when Nokia in Finland, it was like
Hmm.
25% of GDP for like a decade. And then
And then,
when, Apple took over, it just hit it hit hard, the economy. Anyway, I
yeah,
just thought it was my Panama Canal moment for the week.
I love it. Good topic.
Good topic.
Well,
Thank
we're
you.
ready for our guest.
Let's do it. Bring her on.
Okay, so today we have Aparna Shewakramani. Aparna is not only the breakout star of the Netflix hit Indian Matchmaking, she is an attorney, entrepreneur, author, and so much more. After the show's release, Aparna quickly embraced her role as an overnight ambassador for women who demand to have their voices heard in a life partner, in the workplace, in their homes, and in every space they occupy. Her best selling nonfiction memoir, She's Unlikable and Other Lies That Bring Women Down, furthers her crusade to dismantle the negative tropes surrounding women. Welcome, Aparna. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me today.
Of course. I emailed you and I said, oh my gosh, we have so many family connections. I feel like we're family and we need to meet soon.
Yes, yes. Such a
So
small world.
it's such a small world. So I finished reading your book
Oh,
and
that's so beautiful.
I really, really enjoyed it, genuinely. Not just because you're on the show today, but I really did. I watched the show during COVID and I mean I had some judgments, but I love that you did this and it gave me an insight into who you really are. And I want to ask, um, where did this all start? For the people who haven't read your book, where did it all start? You say that you were life seemed pretty good, but you wanted to have a life partner.
Mhm.
And then what happens?
So it starts actually on page one of my book. I jump right into how I got into this, but I had flown to LA for a date, which in your 30s is not unusual. I really thought this guy had promise. And what had happened is that he really liked me, and I didn't really think we had a romantic connection. And so I was feeling very discouraged. It was a very long date. We were really like trying to get to know each other, and I could see him gaining excitement. And I was like, I wish I felt the same way, you know? So I was going home to Houston early, like a couple of hours early, and I was on standby because I changed my flight to go home earlier. And I had to wait till everyone boarded. So while I was waiting back in 2018, we used to be on Facebook mostly. And so I get on Facebook and someone who I know has posted, "Hey, are you single? Are you South Asian? Are you looking to like get married? If so, my sister's the casting director on this new docuseries. And you should apply." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll apply." So it was a very short application, barely 5 minutes. I did it from my phone. I forgot all about it, turned off my phone, and on the other side I had an email being like, was it a phone call? It was a phone call, and they're like, "Hey, we got your application." And I was also applying for new cars at the time. Like my credit union was like, giving me a loan. So I was like, "Oh, okay, like is the loan all set?" And they're like, "For a matchmaking show?" And I was like, "Oh, not my car loan." And then we immediately set up a casting call, and we started, the talks between us, and that went on for quite a few months.
Okay.
Hi, Aparna. How you doing?
Good.
Good. Aparna, I want to know something that I don't know if you're able to speak about. I want to know the business behind the show, Indian Matchmaking. If you're able to disclose, do you have to pay to meet Seema Auntie? And does she have the final say whether you get on the show or not? Or are you paid as an actor like any other TV show?
We don't get paid anything to be on the show, and that's a big part of how Netflix does their unscripted shows. They don't want anyone to have any monetary investment in it. They're not paying you to be an actor. They're literally paying you to show your life as it is. And so I think that's a very unique perspective to bring to a television show. And for me, I really think that brought the rawness that you guys saw, especially in season 1.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm so glad, again, that I read your book, because not only did I learn about you, but it gave me insight to the ugly side of reality TV and social media. And I went back and watched the show again this weekend, just season 1, and kind of forwarded to your parts. And it made so much sense after reading your book. And I mean, how did this book come about? Okay, well, no, let's go back a bit. You do the show.
Mm-hmm.
What happens after? Like, give
Well, it
us
comes
the
out, yeah.
nutshell of it.
Well, it comes out in July of 2020. So think back to where everyone was at that point. I think it's when we realized that pandemic wasn't going to end in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks at that point. People are going stir crazy, and TV shows are trying to go viral. People have nothing to do. And so the show comes out during that period of time, which was a very interesting one, because I really believed when I went on the show that no one would watch it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about 7 Indian people, South Asians, who don't find love. All 7 of us don't find love. And that pattern continues, by the way, for all
Yeah.
3 seasons. And so it's
up, and yes.
yeah, it's funny that this garnered so much attention, but I really thought it would be a docu-series too, like, which my real life is quite boring. I had never even considered that this in any way would be what I considered reality TV. And so I was really shocked when I saw the show itself. I was watching it at 2 a.m. Houston time, and that's when it comes out in LA at midnight, I guess, their time. And that's the first time that we're allowed to see the show, the minute that it drops to the whole world. We don't get special privileges. And so it was 2:00 in the morning. I was, watching the show. I was by myself. My family was like, "Well, watch it tomorrow. It's not even important who's going to watch the show." And I'm kind of stunned. I'm like shell shocked, actually. I'm like, "What is this? That's not even true." Like, and it doesn't even hit me for like really a week or two. Well, probably a week. But, just a few hours later, I had one of my biggest interviews with the New Yorker. And it was my first interview ever, like my first media, and it was the New Yorker. And it was with Seema and Smriti. And I was actually quite polite to her, because I was still like kind of shocked, and I didn't know enough about television to know like who did what really happened there. Why is this not true? Why is my storyline not true to me? And it was kind of bizarre to go through those first few days and then be like, it's not so bad. It's not so bad. And then within like 2 days, like the hate started online, and I was like, oh, it is that bad. And people are watching this show. So I deactivated Twitter quite quickly. I never read Reddit. I think people on Reddit are very strange and weird. And I know that's a generalization, but my friends have sent me screenshots of some of the stuff on Reddit about me and Indian matchmaking. And I'm like, I'm never getting on whatever that is. Facebook is kind of innocuous to me. Like, people my age don't really use it. So I just kind of kept it open. and declined or added people as I needed. And it was Instagram where really the conversation was happening. And I thought that was really interesting because more and more press was coming out, even in the days after the show. I think within days, in favor, and I think one of them was called in favor of Aparna from Indian Matchmaking, or the actual hero. And those articles just kept coming out and they were interviewing me. I was doing press, so I knew what was happening, but I never realized it would be such a wave. And I speak about that in my book about journalists and how I actually have a very fond feeling towards them and how they helped me amplify my voice when I didn't even know what my voice is. I think they were so knowing about this industry in a way that I just wasn't as a Houston lawyer. And they saw immediately what had been done to me and to my edit. And they were like, no way, we're done with this. And for some reason, it was me that really catalyst for them, that they were just done with it. Although I believe that they were always done with it in that period of time, but I was really the only quote unquote villain that was ready to speak to the media. I actually became friends with Jessica Batten from Love is Blind that came out right before me. And I DM'd her and I was like, what do I do? Like, you were hated, I'm hated. She's like, just deactivate social media or lay low for 3 months and just go high, go to your parents' house, turn off your cell phone. And I was like, I'm not doing that. They lied. That's not even who I am. And she was like, up to you, but that's what I did. And so I think also the journalists were interested in the first time in someone who would speak out, someone who got that immediately would be like, hey, like, I want to talk to you. And my story actually changes. The first interviews I do, I am very tentative and like kind. And like literally 4 or 5 weeks in, I'm like a whole different interview. And it's really funny to watch now. Not that I've really gone back and looked at it as an arc, but I've had to like collect all my media for like, I'm a speaker now and all this stuff. So I kind of saw it. I kind of saw it happening in an arc. And I was like, good, I'm glad that I gained my voice and really started speaking more of my truth. It's a tricky situation when you're also like getting your media requests through Netflix. It's like a dance you play. But I think within like 2 months, I was doing media like eight hours a day, basically. I was doing podcasts, I was doing articles. I would wake up at 6 a.m., do European press, go work all day as a lawyer, via Zoom, obviously, because we were in the middle of a lockdown. And then I would do American press during lunch and then at the end of the day. And then I would eat dinner and get my life together for a minute. And then I would start Indian press by 9 p.m. And this went on every day. And I had a full-time job. Like, this was exhausting. I was like literally in court and in depositions. And then I'd be like, lunch break, I gotta go. I have a interview with The Guardian in London. Bye. And they'd be like, and I'd be
And
like,
I just want to make it clear so people know, it's not like you were cast or edited to look like the villain. And not just that, but on social media, you were getting, hate messages and you got stalked. You got, someone said, I hope you die. And the ugliness of social media is so real. And I'm going to tell you a story which is so minute compared to what you went through. I don't really post on random like news or anything on social media. I was in a mood about 2 weeks ago, and there was a picture of Coco Gauff winning the US Open and Djokovic. And it said, Coco Gauff had 1.1 more million views than Djokovic. And I just decided to comment and said, I love Coco Gauff. And let's be honest, like I don't find Novak enjoyable, or I'm just not a big fan of his. I have been called a hater, a loser, and also a looser. So my daughter's like, you need to reply and say that he's grammatically incorrect. And I'm like, no, I'm not even going to engage. But that was such a small little thing. And I was called a loser and a hater, and even more. I can't imagine you went through that. And I'm, as someone who's just meeting you now, I'm so proud of you as a human, as a woman, for standing up,
Yeah,
So
thank
just
you.
that.
I think at the time what I was doing, by the way. So like it's interesting people now say that to me, and I'm very humbled by it. But I'm also like, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no publicists. People like, who was your PR? I'm like, me. Like, what do you mean who was my PR? I didn't have PR. And so it's interesting now to see what I created unknowingly almost.
Good for you.
I'm excited to see Sabrina's reaction to the show, the book, to speaking with you, Aparna. I feel like she's talking to Taylor Swift because, she's so like happy and excited. I've not seen Sabrina like this with any other guest. So there's something you're bringing out. There's something you're bringing out on her.
So
Yeah. Aparna,
well,
I wanted to ask you. Have
I didn't
you
actually answer your other question. Is that okay? About the book and how it
A book,
happened?
it's coming. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I want to know, like, has the reaction to the book been greater than the reaction to you being on the Netflix show?
No. There's no way anything in the world will be greater than a Netflix show. The reach
Mm.
that it has is mind-blowing. You know, it's in mostly every country in the world. I am never going to reach that woman in Malaysia that watched me in the lockdown. I'm never going to reach that, 45-year-old man in Sweden that watched this show. He won't even know I ever wrote a book. He won't even know I'm on Instagram. Like, you have to think about the scope of that show. And in many ways, that's what really felt horrible to me, that I was stripped of a narrative. I never got to tell my story. And no matter what I did in this world, I had to face the fact that I was never going to be able to tell my story on that scale. And that's something I've had to learn to accept, that I can reach
So,
only the people I can reach. And that's a
got it.
very small percentage of people who watch the show. I would say maybe even 1% or less.
So
And
if they call you back for the next season, would you go?
I was on season 2. So
No,
they
but
did.
is there season three? Is there a four? If there is another season and they call you, would you go, or are you no longer interested in that exposure?
There was a season 3. I was not on it. I was not asked to be on it. I was not on it. And I don't know if there's a season 4. I just don't think there's anything left to say about me and my story, honestly.
Okay.
I think 2 seasons, 5 episodes in each season is a lot of one person. And I'm good with my time on there. I don't really think I have anything to say about my dating life on international television anymore.
That's good.
Mhm.
So I said I'd go back to the question. Let's talk about the other side of Aparna. Now we have an author. How did that come about? Was it your idea? I'm going to write a book about my narrative. Did someone approach you about it?
Mhm. I actually didn't want to write the book at all, not because I didn't want to write a book, but because I just didn't have time. I just told you that I was working full time and doing
Mhm.
press 8 hours a day. And what happened was that a woman I had met at a baby shower briefly, like for 10 minutes, right before we had gone into lockdown, DM'd me or messaged me on Facebook and was like, "Hey, I'm writing a book. I think you should talk to my literary agent. She really wants me to connect you to." And I was like, "No, no time." And she was like, "No, I really want to connect you to. I think you guys would have a lot to talk about." I'm like, I literally can't talk to anyone. I'm never going to write a book on this. Thank you, but no, thank you. She was persistent and she was like, "I really think you should talk to this woman." So I was like, fine, I'll give her 15 minutes. So I speak to this literary agent. And by the end of the 15 minutes, I'm like, "I'll sign with you. I'll write a book." She's like, "No, no, no. Talk to other agents. I'm sure other people will approach you." I'm like, "I don't know. I really just kind of like you." And I go with my gut. I also really don't have time to think about things. So like, you're my agent. Let's get this proposal going. And that's how it started. She is an incredible woman. She watched the show and then she was reading all the press. She was Googling and actually going through like the, SCMP, like the Hong Kong or whatever, the Chinese newspapers. She was going through like the English newspapers. She was going through American ones. She was listening to podcasts and she'd done all of this work to come to me and be like, "Hey, you're the first one to speak out who's gotten this edit. I think you could I think you could write a book." And I was like, you don't even know if I can write." She's like, "I know you can write." And I was like, "Okay, let's do this." And so I took a chance on her. She took a chance on me. And we worked really hard. Nonfiction proposals are basically like writing half the book.
Okay.
And they're very intensive. They're about 90, 95 pages long. The book is only like 200. Think about that. And it was a really long, arduous process. It was exhausting. It is one of the reasons I ended up just quitting my job at a certain point, because by October, I was so burnt out. Um, I had been going on the schedule for like 75 days at this point, and my family was worried. They were like, "You've got to cut something in your life. Like, you've
Mhm.
got to cut the book or the media or the something." And I don't think they meant my job, but I got my job. And I was like, "I'm just going to cut that." They're like, "That's not really what we meant." And I was like, "Well, I got to write this book. I
And at
got to
that time, you weren't enjoying your job as much, correct?
I was very honest on the show. I've never enjoyed my job as a
Yeah.
lawyer. So I
Yeah.
was like, I've been doing this for 10 years. I don't love it. I've got this great book deal. I still think telling my story in the media is important. Um, I don't know how long the sabbatical is going to be, but it's just a sabbatical and I'll be back. Because I had already practiced for 10 years. I could come back to law, after 6 months and just start at a new job if the old one was like, "Hey, we already filled your spot," or whatever. It was fine. Um, I ended up never going back. I'm coming up on my 3-year anniversary I don't know, in a week, I think.
I don't think most people go back. As an attorney myself, I left. I have not gone back. I've done so many
I,
other things.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I don't say never a lot, but I think
Yeah.
never I'll be back.
But I think the beauty of our education is that you can use your education in law in every other field you go into. And I'm sure you do.
I hope so. I better
so
be using
Aparna,
that of education.
Yes, exactly.
did I read somewhere that you have some travel company as well that you're running? Is that a
I used
hobby or is that something you're doing?
Yeah, I used to have a luxury travel company that I started in 2018, 2019, beginning of, and it was just a side hustle. I was a lawyer. Like I said, I didn't enjoy my job. I was taping the show around that time, but I had again, I thought no one would watch the show. And I was like, what if I could create a travel company of people like me and people who wanted to solo travel or just travel with their friend, but in a group. And so we did one trip to Jordan in February of 2020. We had 4 other trips after that, one every month, basically. And those all got canceled because March of 2020 happened and everything was put on pause. No one wanted to travel. No one was going to spend money on traveling, even to a place that they considered safe. No one was getting on a plane, really. And so I was like, oh, I'll just pause it. I'll just pause it. And then June of 2021 came around and people were starting to travel again. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. Like, we're vaccinated. People are thinking about international travel again. And I organized a trip to Kenya. And I had 8 people come with me. And we did like a whole safari luxury. It was beautiful. And then we did Diani Beach. It was like a 10-day excursion. And at that time, Delta really hit that side of the world. I mean, we were basically in the part where India was really badly hit, African countries were getting really badly hit. We just didn't know at that point that Delta was going to be such like a huge wave as we later saw, and so travel then halted again. Because a lot of the countries we were going to was like Morocco was next, and like all of these different places, and so I was like, let's just put it on pause. And when you put something on pause so many times and then also get interested in the other things you're doing, like I started speaking, I finished the book, I had to do a book tour, I started writing, screenplays, and I just didn't have that time or energy or bandwidth to grow a business. And really, even though the business was like 2 or 3 years old, I'd only done 2 trips. It was really only 2 trips old. And I was like, this is not going to work. And so I literally shut it down, I think 6 months ago. I was just like closing, took down the website, took down everything about it. And I was like, it's over. And that's okay. I think that a lot of people have to like really understand that entrepreneurship goes like that. Like, you're allowed to change your interests. You're allowed to pivot. It's not a failure in any way. It just, the timing of the world didn't work out with a luxury travel company, and I'm okay with it.
Have you ever found anyone in, I guess, the generation that's older than us, baby boomers, saying that it is a failure? Like, oh, your business didn't work out. Did you? No, I've sensed that in
Yeah.
that Indian older generation. Have
You mean
you?
mom and dad, Sabrina?
Not really, but other people like uncles and aunts, like they're
I
like,
think
oh, you're not practicing anymore. Well,
Yeah, well, I think I get a lot of grace because it's like I'm not practicing anymore, but 60 million people watch me on TV and I wrote a
oh,
book. So
that's
people
true.
are like,
Yeah,
you can do whatever you want. You've already gone off the course. It's
yeah.
working out well for you. So I do definitely think I have like that privilege of, I didn't just quit law. I like quit law at a time where I think the older generation like is like, I don't really understand what's happening in her life, but something's happening.
And it's
And
good.
and that's enough for us to not question her life choices.
Good, good.
What,
So,
what is
oh,
next? What is next for you, Aparna? Do you have a plan? Do you have in your mind a clear plan for the next 3, 5 years? Or are you just enjoying the moment and seeing where the wave takes you?
I wrote a screenplay and I was talking to a cable company about it. It's a rom-com about a South Asian woman. And then the strike happened. And as we know, the strike just ended yesterday. Um,
Yes.
so we'll see if those conversations continue. Obviously, the industry is still in a very strange place with the unions. The actors union is still obviously on strike. And so I think things are still going to be relatively slow. No, I don't know how this goes. I'm entering an industry I know nothing about at a time that is unprecedented, which
yeah.
seems almost fitting for my life. Why not? But yeah, so I wrote the screenplay. I love it. We'll see if we can sell it. I have a documentary that I'm the creator of, and I have a great producer and director, and we were supposed to be taping at the end of this year. But with the strike and all the things that are happening, we might be postponing to probably early next year. But yeah, it's going to be either a docu-feature or a docu-series based on me. So I'll be in front of the camera again, which is kind of weird, but on a show I created, which is kind of cool. And one that I get power to edit, right? So I'm not going to obviously edit a show. I don't know how, but I get a say in the clips and in the final outcome. And if there's anything I'm uncomfortable with or I think doesn't portray me and my story, I can say that to my friendly producer, my friendly director who are creating this with me.
Yeah,
That's what
totally.
Mindy did, right? Mindy Kaling did that with her own show.
She created a scripted show. Yes, mine is non-scripted.
Yeah, good for you. Best of luck with all that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tell us about your speaking engagements.
So they just started coming in randomly and they grew, and I don't really pursue them in any way. I just joined a speakers bureau like in the past 6 months, and that's been really cool too. But I just didn't even know this kind of industry existed, and I love connecting with smaller groups of people. And for me, 300 to 500 is even a smaller group, right? Because like think about the ways I usually connect with people or have in the past. And so I think it's been really fun to like reach these people, have them interact with me. They usually ask questions. We have like a quick meet and greet. It's different nonprofits and universities and companies that I've been to. And it's really cool to see the way that I've impacted them even years later. I mean, now we're talking like even season 2 came out when like, I think August of 2022. So over about a year ago, I feel like that part of my life is done. And yet the impact I can still see when I meet people and when I engage with them and when they even ask me to come speak to them. I think that's such a privilege that I have. And I love it. I hope I can grow that part of what I do on a day-to-day basis.
That's great. Do you
That
want
is
to
awesome.
success?
Yeah, Aparna, we ask all our guests, the one question we ask everybody is, what is their definition of success and whether that has evolved over time or because of something that happened to them?
So my definition of success today is to live a life that is authentic and aligned with you and only you, not societal milestones, not societal norms, and to know that every day you're growing towards something that makes you even more happy, more fulfilled, and more content. I think that growth or the idea of growth always existing is part of my definition of success in a big way because it also leaves room for that definition to change and evolve.
I like that. And notice she said
Sweet.
happiness too, right? It's been a theme amongst several of our
Everybody.
guests.
Mhm.
If there was anything you would change in your journey, not just Indian matchmaking, but throughout your journey, to bring you to where you are today, is there?
I don't know. I mean, people have been asking me recently, would you do it all over again? And actually, they've always asked me that. And I've always
Yeah.
been like, yeah, of course. And then, the more distance I get from the show, I'm like, I'm not sure. Actually, I'm not sure I would. If I knew what I knew today, I'm not sure I would have done a season 1. I'm not sure I would have partook in this circus. My life was pretty good, and I can't tell you what would have happened in that life, but it was pretty good. It was pretty stable. It was full of love of my friends and my family. I was traveling. I had a great career. Maybe I didn't love it, but I was pivoting. So yeah, I think it's not a regret, but now as I get further, I want to be very honest with people. They always want me to find the silver lining and be like, aren't you glad you did it? And I want to normalize that, like, maybe I'm not glad, like, and maybe that's okay. Maybe we're not glad about every decision we made, but it became our path, and there's an acceptance to that. And woulda, shoulda, couldas are very unproductive in many ways. So, yeah, I think that's an interesting thing that I've evolved into very recently. So, you guys are one of the first to get the. I'm not sure I would have done it.
I'm
I
curious to know.
oh no, go ahead, go ahead.
I'm just curious to know who inspires you. Like, do you look up to anybody in the business world, the spiritual world? Do you have any role models? Just want to know your mindset.
I actually have a whole chapter of this in my book, and I talk about my role models and how most of our life we're told, role models are like these people who inspire you, who are business leaders, who are thought leaders. And when I was writing the book, I was answering basically questions that people had given me at that point over the 4 months of media. And one of them kept being like, who inspires you? And when I had to write about it, I was like, sure, I love Michelle Obama, but it's really like my mother, my grandmother, my great grandmother. I think a lot of our role models are actually closer than we believe them to be, and that they're in our families, and that they've paved paths for us that have made it so much easier. And that if we sat back and reflected on it, there's so many lessons we didn't have to learn because the people right ahead of us, for me, the women right ahead of me, like, my mother, my grandmother, and my great grandmother, they did so much, trailblazing. And so the trailblazing that I'm doing now seems almost inconsequential to some of the things that they did. And I think that's really helped me gain perspective on what a role model is.
In the book, you do talk about that, and you talk about your great nani who, enduring the partition. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that you bring that up because, hopefully, young girls are also reading your book
Mm-hmm.
and seeing what, our family went through to get us to
Yeah.
where we are today. There is a show on Disney Plus called Miss Marvel. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you've seen it. And they go through they talk about the whole story. So it was such a great opportunity for me to talk to my daughter about it. And then last night I was talking to her about it again. I'm like, look, she talks about, what, Nana was just born, but what he had to go through, like, or his parents had to go through. So yeah,
Yeah.
kudos to you for writing that.
Yeah. I
I
thought it was
apologize. I did not read the book. I apologize.
That's absolutely fine. I think it was really important because being Sindhi is such a big part of who I am. I think we're a very interesting community in that our diaspora has been, pretty global for a very long time, especially since the partition and even prior to that in some communities. And we don't really have a home. Like, we don't have not really, we don't have a homeland.
We
And so,
don't. Yeah.
yeah, so I think it's a very interesting community that finds its home in so many different places. And, I have family in Japan. I grew up in Dubai. I was born in London. Like, we still have most of our family in Spain. And like, that's very unique concept because my other South Asian friends go back to, Gujarat or Punjab, and
Exactly.
they see their whole community. And we just don't have that expansive of a feeling. We can go back to Bombay, obviously, but it's still different. It's not like going back to a place where everyone's speaking Gujarati or everyone's
Mhm.
speaking Punjabi. In Bombay, not everyone's speaking Sindhi. I mean, you can surround yourself with those people, but it's just there's no place like that. And I wanted to say that that was a big part of who I am and
Yeah.
what makes me so flexible and adaptable. And the women in my family for generations have been dealing with that. Not only the partition, but then moving to Nigeria, and then my mother moving to Dubai, and then us moving to the US. Like, there's this like line of leaving, and it's made us so resilient. And I think that's such a beautiful thing about not only my family line, but the whole community.
Yeah. Definitely agree. And I
I,
think all of our families have, your family stayed in the Canary Islands, but we're the ones that kept moving. My parents were in Lagos, Nigeria, then the Canary Islands, then to the States. And, we've been
but
around
I
to,
like that about Indies. I mean, we can go any country in the world. We don't have to pay for any hotel. We always have some uncle, auntie, or friend who offers their apartment. We get great company. We have local guides everywhere we go. We have the best weddings, full stop.
Hmm.
I love being a Cindy. Dim sum lunch everywhere we go.
Yeah, I would love to have a place that we could go though. When I was younger, my mom took us to I think it's a place called Kalyan. It's like outside of Bombay, and it was one of the original refugee camps of Sindhis after the partition, and now it is still like predominantly Sindhis that never broke out of that cycle of, I guess, poverty in some ways, but like, they've become middle class or lower middle class, but stayed in that area. And it was the first time in my life I had ever heard Sindhi spoken on the street or seen like Sindhi cuisine, like in every restaurant. And we were only there for like 4 or 5 hours, but my mom was like, this is very important to see. Like, this is what our community built. Maybe they didn't want to, but they built in the 1940s, and it still exists today. And their children and their children's children still live in this place. It was really interesting. And I just thought it was my first taste of what we're really missing as a community. Like, again, everyone wants to be like, don't you see the silver lining that you're a global citizen? I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. We still should have a place. And yeah, I think it both can exist, that we can be proud of being global citizens, but that, and it would be great to have a place that was a homeland of some sorts.
Speaking of home, where's home for you now? I know, you were in New York. Did you go back to New York after you came back to Houston at the end of your book?
Um, did I come back to Houston? At the end of
I
my
think
book,
you
I
came back
leave.
for baby shower, it says,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Baby
Yeah.
shower. Yeah.
I lived in New York for a full year. I moved there from
Okay.
April of 21, when the vaccines were, finally out and in us, to April of 2022, which is when I went on my book tour, with the full intention after the 3 month book tour to go back to New York. And then I just never did. And I think it's interesting that I still go back every month for about 7 to 10 days of every month, but I have not really spent more than like 4 to 5 weeks at a time there. I think last year I spent 6 weeks there at one point. Um, but otherwise, I just go for 10 days a month, which is a lot of travel. But I really wanted to write, and I really wanted to be productive in my creativity. And I just don't get that opportunity in New York because it's me. I don't know how to do it there. Like everybody there can be productive, obviously, but in my life, I just get so excited to be there. And I'm so drawn into like events every week and like this fun thing, this book reading, this play, this community event. And I just find that I'm very busy there, but I'm not very productive. And I wanted to say like, yeah, I did that for 12 months and it was really fun. And then I did the book tour and that was really exhausting. And now the next chapter has to begin. And that's when I sat down and fully wrote the screenplay. And that's when I really started developing the documentary that we're going to be making. And I think that back and forth is giving me a chance to enjoy what I enjoy about New York, but still to, feed my creativity by going to some place quieter like Houston, or I'll be in LA sometimes, or, wherever, mostly Houston though, to spend this time during the strike to really focus on the work I want to do, because that's where I see myself in 3 to 5 years, not going to really fun events every night, but to creating a career around the thing that I love, which is writing. And that can look like even a docu-series, which is not written obviously or scripted, but something I'm creating that's telling a story. I think maybe that's the crux of it. I want to tell stories, and that can look in many different ways, but that's how I see the next 3 to 5 years going. I just submitted a proposal for a book to Amazon Publishing. It's a young adult novel, maybe a series, that is actually based off of chapter one of my own memoir, where I go around the world in a cruise ship as a 20-year-old. And I thought, wouldn't that be fun to give to the kids today, like 15 to like 25-year-olds are reading YA novels. And this story of me going around the world, it's like pretty foreign to most people. And it creates like a lot of, a great environment for stories to unfold. And so, yeah, I think storytelling in every form is where I'll be working and thriving, hopefully in the next 3 to 5 years. I think you asked that question.
Yes, you did. And your semester at sea, you had first heard about it on Road Rules or seen it on Road Rules. And I actually wrote a question down about that because that's where I first saw it. But I believe I had graduated already and I was in law school when that came out.
Hmm.
So do you still watch like Road Rules Challenge, the challenge, or do you not watch that?
On. Oh, I think that show, someone was like, you should be on it. I was like, I know. No, I didn't even know it was part of the Road Rules franchise. I don't actually watch a lot of reality TV, disclaimer.
Okay.
Um, Nowadays I'm more interested in it, and I watch it with like, sometimes I watch like Love is Blind with a very discerning eye, or like The Ultimatum, just because I'm not really watching it for the show. Yes, I
Yeah.
am. The part of me is like, huh, wonder what's going on there. What's going on?
Well,
And
you've
so,
changed my perspective because I do enjoy several reality shows, and now I feel bad for the ones that I judged beforehand, and now I'm going to go out, watch it with a whole new perspective.
yeah, it's really interesting. My mom and I were watching Love is Blind like, I don't know, 6, 8 months ago. Because I do watch Love is Blind. I find that one to be very interesting. And she was like, she is just being unreasonable and blah, blah, blah. And I looked at her and I was like, have you ever seen a woman? Like, you don't know that woman. You don't know what she's being edited as. Like, you don't know anything. How could you just say that? And she was like, oh my God, I did it. And I was
Did
like,
you
you
not see
did.
what I just went through?
So instinctual. I was like, it is. And that's the hardest part, is that these producers and editors are so good at eliciting these very quick reactions from us that we don't stop and think about, because we don't have to. It's entertainment. And it was funny. I actually thought it was comical that my mom got like caught up in it in a second, but it was also very eye-opening that she knows everything and she still got caught up on it. And it's so defeating for me so many times to see people get caught up in like what they think is true about TV. And I'm like, how dumb can you be? But I get it. I mean, I really understand. It's
Human
just,
nature, right? Kicks in.
yeah.
Aparna, I wouldn't share with Sabrina your travel plans. I think she'll come and stalk you soon.
Yeah. Well, I don't really have travel plans right now, actually. I've had a very slow travel year besides New York, LA, New York, LA. And then obviously I went to the TED conference in Vancouver, and I do some fun things, but this is the slowest travel year I've had in a long time. But again, it's because I wanted to give time to the storytelling that I'm trying to create and this industry I'm trying to get into. And one of the things that I thought would help is if I cut myself off from travel and movement and events in New York and all those kinds of things, to slow down and really think about how I want to give that to the world. And if it's possible that becomes something I can give full time to the world, my storytelling. And so I think the next even 6 months will be pretty slow. And then I think by mid year next year, I will be on the move. Very, very much so on the move.
Good for
We
you.
love storytellers. I mean, the reason why we're doing this podcast is exactly for that.
I
So,
know. Exactly.
should we jump into the rapid fire?
Do
Sure.
it. Rapid fire.
Sabrina, you want to go first?
Sure. Okay. You have to be on another reality show. Which one would you choose?
Uh, oh my God, that is that.
Isn't that an awful question? I don't even know where I
That's a
wrote it.
great question. It's a great question.
Oh, maybe the Golden Bachelor.
Which actually starts tomorrow, I think.
I'm tuning into that one. I find that to be fascinating. Like literally now I just watch it because it's fascinating to me. I'm like, how are they making this? What is the plan? How do they build story arcs? I think I'm too young. They actually said the
I
cutoff
think
was
so too.
like 50 or 60, but
But you could throw a good spin on the show.
the eternal bachelorette right here.
Good one. Next one. Your celebrity crush.
George Clooney.
He was mine until he got married to a mall. And I did meet him when I was practicing in DC many years ago, and he was just as handsome in person.
I like him because he's married to a mall. That's when he became a
It's
celebrity.
pretty amazing, isn't she?
I was like, oh, a man who understands substance. Interesting. He's great.
Yeah, yeah. It's
But
not that
she's also a looker.
she's what?
She's beautiful as well.
She's
I mean,
gorgeous.
she's
But
smart as hell.
But she has a mind of her own, and he would prefer beautiful with a mind of her own than because you can find beautiful anywhere. And he picked this beautiful, and I was like, good man.
He's not like Leo. Leo DiCaprio after 25 turns them down.
Right.
Okay, so you said, probably middle of next year, you'll start traveling again. Next country you plan on visiting?
I have such a long list. I really want to do Uzbekistan. I want to go to Mongolia. I still haven't made it to the Bolivian salt flats, which is weird. When I planned a trip right before the lockdown, there was a coup or like a presidential issue, and like the roads to the salt flats were shut, and I had to literally cancel my planned trip. So I got to make it to the Bolivian salt flats.
Okay.
I think I'll hit up all those places: Uzbekistan, Mongolia, and the Bolivian salt flats.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
I live in Chile, Aparna. So when you do visit Bolivia, maybe I join you.
I want to go to the Atacama Desert in Chile.
That's a worth seeing. It's in my list as well. I still haven't seen it, but it's in my list.
Well, it's on the border of the salt flats, so you can do them together. So you can do the salt flats from the Chile side, from the Atacama
Desert. We'll do
it
together.
Okay, perfect.
Your trip is not girls only, right? You're okay with...
At this point, I don't even know. I just know I'm going.
Okay, great. Next, what fills your cup?
I think the life that I'm creating every day fills my own cup, and that's my goal for every day. To fill my own cup. I think that's very important. I think there's so many things that we do because we play roles in our lives with other people, but the role that we should be playing first and foremost is the one where we grow our own happiness.
Yeah. Good.
Sabrina?
Last question. What has been your favorite age so far?
I actually loved my early 20s when I was traveling the world. That chapter of my books, chapter 1, people love it for many reasons, but my close friends say that you can tell the joy I have in even telling the stories of me as a young woman seeing the world for the first time. I think that was so formative for me, for the way that I view the world as such a small place that's so accessible. And then all the experiences after that have shown me how small the world is, even going on Indian matchmaking. So I think like that moment where you're turning into who you are is such a beautiful time, and it's so full of adventure. You think you're invincible. Now I'm like yawning all the time. I'm like, my back hurts. Like, take me back to 21.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah, me too. I have a question, Sabrina. I want to
Yeah.
bring it at the end of the question, at the end of the show, just in case it's inappropriate, we can just edit it out. But I always like to ask one inappropriate question per episode. Otherwise, it wouldn't be, our show. My question is multiple. One, have you ever been in love or felt that you are with somebody that could be the one?
Mhm.
And two, I know a lot of friends who are girls who are Sindhi, who are now over 40. And when they were 20, they were approached by a lot of guys. I know because I was one of those guys. And, it was rejection after rejection after rejection. And today that they're now 43, 46, etc., they look back and go, you know what? When I was early 20s and that guy approached me, I thought, he was too forward, or I didn't think it was the right timing, or maybe I was shy. I didn't date like my white friends did. Do you regret? I mean, you're obviously a very attractive girl. Do you regret not saying yes, maybe earlier on, to a prospective guy? So love and potential regrets. That's my last question.
Yes, I've been in love. I read about it in my book, My First Love, and then I've been in love since, and I have no regrets. None of those people were right for me. So I don't know, when women go back and do that, I'm like, they weren't right for you. You knew it. Like, listen to your gut. So many women want to rewrite their narratives to just make it so that they found someone. And I'm like, you knew better. You knew better someplace inside of you. And that's why you said no. You can call it that you were shy or that you were whatever. No, you knew that person wasn't for you, and you should own that. And I own every person that wasn't for me. And I
But
wish
do
them
you feel like when you date somebody, sometimes they evolve, you evolve, and together you make it work? I'm not saying it's an arranged marriage. I
well.
know it's dating, but do you feel like a 20-year-old guy maybe has a few issues or growing up to do that maybe when they're late 30s or 40s, they're a more complete person?
A lot of my friends actually met their spouses when they were in their late teens or 20s, and you're right, when those couples get together at that point, they evolve and grow together, and it's been really beautiful to watch. Now I'm in my late 30s, and a lot of my friends, my really best friends, have been in relationships and marriages for 15 years, or relationships, and then they got married like in their early 20s. And they admit, they're like, we grew as a couple and we made decisions to have interests together and to go to certain places together and build that life together. I think that is a different story. But they were very certain when they met these people. Even one of my friends met him when she was 13 in eighth grade. They were certain even then that this is the person I want to spend my life with. They didn't be like, oh, we'll grow into him, or like, no, they were certain about the person. They happened to meet them when they were young, and then they grew and evolved together. And I hate to say this, but the women in my life are like, we made him who he is. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like,
Of
okay.
course.
They're like, he wouldn't have the job he had today. He wouldn't have the trajectory that he had today. He wouldn't have the promotions he had today if I hadn't been pushing him since we were 21. And I'm like, that's an interesting take on it. I don't know if it's
Well, that's
true.
what they say, right? Behind every successful man, there's an even more successful or strong woman.
Yeah.
Aparna,
Um,
I'm like your friends. I met my husband my freshman year of college. Then we went to different law schools, but very close to each other. And we got married in our early to mid 20s,
Yeah,
and now
exactly.
I'm in my mid 40s. And I tell my friends, do not settle, do not compromise. I'm like, marriage is beautiful, but there's a lot of tough roads,
Mhm.
and you do evolve. And if you're not evolving together or you do not reconnect, it's tough,
Mhm.
So, good for you for standing your ground.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
good for
I'm seeing
you.
the first wave of divorces now, and it's people that are good people that just didn't evolve in the same way. And it's interesting to see. And you ask them, should you have gotten into that marriage? Do you regret that? The way that you ask, your single women in your life, do you regret that? And some of them will say, no, I needed that. That was for
Yeah,
me. And some will be like, of course, I shouldn't have gotten married that young. So we always get both sides of the coin in the way that people see their past. But for me, I'm always one to be like, yeah, no, I knew that person was not for me.
Great. Aparna, that's the show. We are done with the 45 minutes. We want to be respectful for your time, and I think I think you're going to be extremely, even more successful than you are today. I think you're an awesome storyteller. I would love to meet you in person, if not in Bolivia, somewhere else in the world.
Yes.
But I just want to thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to close with one thing. Vulture published an article, and it's funny, when I was Googling you too, it's one of the top things that showed up, and it listed all your dislikes as edited on the show. So we created a top 3 things. It was a longer list, but we're going to give you the top 3 things we like about you. Okay? You want love, you say, because you also want to give love. Number 2, you learn to embrace the sun and your gorgeous tan when you did semester at sea, because I've been through the whole, oh, you're dark. Okay. So I love that you did that. And number 3, you're living your truth. And I'm going to end it with part of the acknowledgement section in your book. And to everyone who ever hated, despised, or detested me due to my portrayal on a television show, thank you. You are the very reason I continue to speak up for the ambitious, driven women who want love but aren't willing to settle for anything less than the partner they believe they deserve. You are the reason I live my truth every single day. I love that. And I love that it's at the beginning of your book. So thank you so much. It's been a privilege having you on the show, and I've loved getting to know you.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
This has been another episode of Indian Explorers. It's been such a wonderful episode. We hope you enjoyed it as well. Please subscribe and share with others. Thank you.